They say marriage is about sacrifice. My husband took that literally. I woke up from routine surgery missing a kidney, the one I never agreed to donate. He'd forged my signature to save his brother's life. The doctors were complicit. His family called it love. The law called it complicated. I called it what it was, mutilation. And when I tried to fight back, they tried to bury me. But you can't silence someone who's already lost everything. This is the story of how my husband harvested my organ, how his family tried to harvest my silence, and how I learned that some violations are too monstrous to forgive, even when everyone tells you that you should. The first thing I noticed was the wrongness of the pain. I'd had my appendix out at 19. I knew what post-surgical pain felt like. Sharp, localized, predictable. This was different. This was a deep, throbbing ache that radiated from my left side, like someone had carved out a piece of me and left the hollow space to scream. The second thing I noticed was James. My husband sat beside my hospital bed, his surgeon's hands folded in prayer position, pressed against his mouth. His eyes were red-rimmed, his normally perfect hair disheveled. He looks like he'd been crying. "Maya," he whispered when he saw my eyes open. Thank God you're okay." My mouth was desert dry. I tried to speak, but only a croak emerged. He pressed the call button, then brought a cup of water with a straw to my lips. "Slowly," he murmured. "You've been through a lot." The water was heaven. I drank, then croaked, What happened?" James's face crumpled. "There was a complication during your gallbladder surgery, internal bleeding. They had to..." His voice broke convincingly. "They had to do emergency intervention, but you're okay now. You're going to be okay." Gallbladder surgery. Right. I'd been having pain for weeks. James had scheduled me with his colleague, Dr. Patterson. Simple laparoscopic procedure, in and out same day. But this didn't feel simple. "Why does it hurt so much?" I managed. "Left side." "The bleeding was on that side," James said smoothly. "They had to make a larger incision than planned. But Maya, you're alive. That's what matters." Something in his voice was wrong. Too rehearsed. Too careful. But the morphine was pulling me back under, and I let it take me. 3 days passed in a fog of pain medication and confusion. James was constantly present, along with his father, Dr. Marcus Winters, chief of surgery at Seattle Grace Memorial, the hospital where I'd worked as a nurse for 6 years before marrying James. They were attentive, too attentive. Dr. Winters kept asking how I felt, if I had any concerns, if I understood that complications were rare but normal. His bedside manner was perfect, but there was something in his eyes, a calculation, an assessment that made my skin crawl. "We're taking good care of our girl," he told James within my hearing. "No one needs to know how close we came to losing her." The phrase stuck with me. No one needs to know. On the 4th day, the morphine was reduced. My head began to clear, and I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The scar. I'd finally mustered the courage to look under my gown to see the damage. Laparoscopic gallbladder removal typically left 3 or 4 small incisions, each less than an inch long. What I saw was a 6-inch incision running along my left flank. The placement was wrong. Everything was wrong. I knew anatomy. I'd been a surgical nurse. This wasn't a gallbladder incision. This was a nephrectomy incision, kidney removal. My hands shook as I traced the stitches. My mind raced through possibilities, each more horrifying than the last. Had they found cancer? Had something gone catastrophically wrong? Why wouldn't they tell me? I pressed the call button. The nurse who responded was Stephanie, someone I'd worked with for 3 years. When she saw me, her face did something complicated. Surprise, then sympathy, then careful neutrality. "Maya," she said quietly, "you're awake. How are you feeling?" "Stephanie," my voice was stronger now, "what happened to me? What surgery did I actually have?" She hesitated, glancing at the door. Your husband really should. But Stephanie, please, we've worked together for years. What did they take from me? Her face crumpled. Oh, Maya, you don't know. They didn't tell you. Ice flooded my veins. Didn't tell me what? She moved closer, lowering her voice. You donated a kidney to Rick, James's brother. The words didn't make sense. I heard them, but they were in the wrong order. Impossible. I didn't donate anything, I said slowly. I had gallbladder surgery. Stephanie's eyes widened. Maya, your chart says kidney donation, directed donation to family member. There's a consent form with your signature. The room tilted. That's impossible. I never signed anything. I never agreed to. The door opened. James walked in carrying coffee and stopped when he saw Stephanie's face. His expression transformed from concern to something harder, colder. Stephanie, he said quietly, I think Maya needs rest now. Could you give us a moment? She looked between us, trapped. Then she fled. James set down the coffee and sat beside my bed. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. You took my kidney, I whispered. You took my kidney without asking me. Maya, without asking me. My voice broke the hospital quiet like a gunshot. James lunged forward, hands raised placatingly. Let me explain. Please, just let me explain. Explain how you mutilated me. Explain how you violated my body. Explain how you... Rick was dying, James' composure finally cracked. He was dying, Maya. Kidney failure. He had maybe 6 months left. His kids... Jesus, his kids would have grown up without a father. So you stole mine. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. You forged my consent to harvest my organ? It wasn't like that. You're a match. Perfect match. We did the genetic testing months ago, remember? That routine blood work I said you needed. You were his only hope. The transplant list, he'd never make it in time. His drinking, his medical history, they'd put him at the bottom. The betrayal was so complete, so total that I couldn't process it. The man I'd married, the man I'd trusted with my body and my life, had drugged me and carved me open like I was spare parts. You had no right, I whispered. No matter what your reason, you had no right. James's face was desperate now. I know how this looks. I know. But Maya, you're going to be fine. One kidney is enough. People live completely normal lives with one kidney. And Rick, he's alive. His kids still have their father. Get out. Maya, get out. I screamed at this time, loud enough that footsteps came running. Get out of my room. Get away from me. Security appeared. Nurses. Dr. Winters materialized like a ghost, immediately taking control. Everyone calm down. James, step outside. Maya, you're experiencing post-surgical confusion. I'm not confused. I was sobbing now, rage and violation tearing through me. He stole my kidney. He forged my signature. Dr. Winters exchanged a look with the nurse, the kind of look that said, patient is hysterical, sedate her. No, I gasped, seeing it. No, you don't dare. But the needle was already sliding into my IV port. Warmth flooded my veins, pulling me down, down, down into darkness. The last thing I saw was Dr. Winters' face above me, coldly satisfied. Can you believe what just happened? Maya trusted her husband completely, and he literally stole her kidney while she was unconscious. But this is just the beginning of the nightmare. If you're shocked by this betrayal, wait until you see what the Winters family does next to cover their tracks. Please like this video if you're as outraged as I am, share it with anyone who needs to know this story, and subscribe so you don't miss Chapter 2, where Maya discovers just how deep this conspiracy goes. Trust me, what happens next will make your blood boil. See you in the next chapter. When I woke again, my mother was there. Elena Martinez sat in the chair beside my bed, her work-worn hands clutching her rosary. When she saw my eyes open, she crossed herself and leaned forward. Mija, what have they done to you? I told her everything. The words came in broken Spanish and English, tears streaming down my face as I explained the violation, the betrayal, the theft of my own flesh. My mother listened in silence, her face hardening with each sentence. Elena Martinez had cleaned houses for 40 years to put me through nursing school. She'd outlasted an abusive husband and raised me alone on minimum wage. She knew what powerful men were capable of. "We go to police, now, today," she said when I finished. "I don't care who he is. Mom, it's not that simple. James is... I don't care who he is." Her voice was steel. "He cut you open like an animal. In my country, in this country, everywhere. This is crime." She was right. I knew she was right. But the morphine was still clouding my thoughts, and I was so tired. "Tomorrow," I promised, "when I'm clearer. Tomorrow we go to the police." She nodded, squeezing my hand. "I stay tonight. No one else comes in. You understand? No one." I should have known they wouldn't let it be that easy. Dr. Winters came at 2 a.m. when he thought my mother was sleeping. But Elena Martinez didn't sleep when her daughter was in danger. She was awake when he entered, and she stood immediately, placing herself between him and my bed. "Get out," she said quietly. Dr. Winters barely glanced at her. "Mrs. Martinez, I need to speak with my daughter-in-law, privately." "She is not your anything. You leave now or I call security." "I am security," his voice hardened. "This is my hospital, Mrs. Martinez. I'm chief of surgery, and your daughter is my patient. Now sit down." My mother didn't move. The tension stretched taut enough to snap. Then Dr. Winters sighed, adopting a more conciliatory tone. "Look, I understand you're upset. Any mother would be. But you need to understand the situation. Maya signed a consent form. She agreed to the donation. She's confused now because of the medication, but..." "Lies," my mother spat. "All lies." "Mrs. Martinez," Dr. Winters pulled out his phone, showing her a document. "This is Maya's signature, witnessed by 2 medical professionals, legally binding." I struggled to sit up, head swimming. "I never signed that. I never..." "You don't remember signing it," Dr. Winters corrected smoothly. "The pre-surgical anxiety medication can cause amnesia. It's a documented side effect. But you did sign, Maya. You consented to save your brother-in-law's life. You were extraordinarily brave." The gaslighting was so smooth, so practiced, that for a moment I almost believed him. Then my mother said, "Show me the date." Dr. Winters blinked. "Excuse me?" "The date on the consent form. Show me." He hesitated, then turned the phone. My mother's eyes narrowed. "This says she signed consent on September 10th at 2 p.m. at this hospital." My mother's voice was triumphant. "Impossible." The silence that followed was deafening. "Get out," I said quietly. "Get out of my room and tell James I want a divorce." Dr. Winters straightened, and the mask of concern fell away entirely, revealing something cold and calculating beneath. "Maya," he said softly, "you need to think very carefully about what you do next. You're a nurse at this hospital. Your employment, your reputation, your entire career depends on the goodwill of this institution. If you make accusations you can't prove, if you try to destroy my son's life over what was clearly a medical emergency decision..." Medical emergency? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You planned this. You forged my signature weeks in advance. This was premeditated." Who's going to believe that? A respected surgeon and hospital administrator, or a confused post-surgical patient with a history of... He paused meaningfully. "Mental health struggles." My blood ran cold. "I don't have..." "Don't you? I seem to recall James mentioning your anxiety, your mood swings, the medication you take for depression. It's all documented in your medical records, of course, and post-surgical psychosis is a recognized condition." He was threatening me, openly, confidently, threatening to gaslight me into silence. My mother stepped forward, and I'd never seen her look more dangerous. You think you scare us? My daughter knows 50 nurses in this hospital. She has friends, people who will believe her, and you cannot threaten everyone." "Can't I?" Dr. Winters smiled coldly. "Mrs. Martinez, how's your immigration status these days? All sorted, I hope? Because it would be terrible if there were complications. Terrible timing with Maya needing so much care." My mother went rigid. "That's what I thought," Dr. Winters said softly. "Now here's what's going to happen. Maya is going to accept that she made a generous, life-saving donation to family. She's going to recover quietly, and we're all going to move forward, because the alternative," he looked at my mother, "the alternative affects a lot of people. Do you understand?" He left before either of us could respond. My mother and I sat in stunned silence. "Mija," she finally whispered, "my papers, they are good. I have green card. He cannot." "I can," I said hollowly. "He's rich, Mom. Rich people can do anything." "So we do nothing? We let them win?" I thought about Dr. Winters' threats, about James's betrayal, about the kidney-shaped hole in my body where trust used to live. "No," I said slowly, "we don't let them win. We just have to be smarter than they are." I was discharged after 2 weeks. The recovery timeline was suspiciously accelerated. Dr. Winters wanted me out of his hospital before I could make trouble. James tried to come to the discharge meeting. I had security remove him. My mother took me to her small apartment in Renton, 1 bedroom, the couch where I'd slept through college, the smell of her cooking, and the Virgin Mary statue she'd carried from Guatemala. It was the safest place in the world. For the first few days, I just existed, slept, cried, stared at the ceiling. Every time I shifted position, I felt the absence of my kidney. Phantom pain, they called it, though there was nothing phantom about it. On day 4, someone knocked. My mother answered, then returned looking concerned. "Mija, there is someone here. Says she works at hospital. Says it's important." I struggled to the door. Standing there, nervous and determined, was Casey Chen. I barely knew Casey. They were a hospital administrator, someone I'd seen in meetings but never really talked to. Young, maybe 26, with bright eyes and a nervous energy. "Maya," Casey said quietly, "can I come in? I have something you need to see." What Casey showed me changed everything. They had brought a laptop, and on it was a folder marked Winters Family Confidential. "I shouldn't have this," Casey said, as my mother and I crowded around the screen. "I could be fired, probably arrested, but I can't." They took a shaky breath. "I can't stay silent about this." The folder contained everything. Emails between James and Dr. Winters going back 6 months, discussions about Rick's kidney failure, debates about whether they could convince me to donate. The moment they decided it was easier to forge my signature than ask permission. There were medical records, mine accessed illegally, analyzed for compatibility, genetic testing I'd never known about, psychological evaluations based on my employee style, assessing whether I'd be likely to make trouble. There were financial documents showing Rick had been denied placement on the transplant list due to lifestyle factors, his alcoholism, his poor medication compliance. And there was a contract between James, Dr. Winters, and Rick's insurance company. If the donation was voluntary, insurance would cover everything. If it wasn't, if there were legal complications, the Winters family would be financially liable for millions. They'd stolen my kidney to avoid an insurance bill. "How did you get this?" I whispered. Casey's smile was grim. "I'm in hospital administration. Trans people get really good at being invisible while having access to everything. They don't guard their emails when you think you're just the person who fixes printer problems." "Why?" I asked. "Why risk this for me?" Casey's expression hardened. "Because 6 months ago, Dr. Winters tried to force me out when I transitioned, made my life hell. He only backed off when I threatened a discrimination suit. But I've been watching him since then, documenting everything. When I heard what happened to you, I knew this was finally enough to bring him down. My mother crossed herself. This is evidence. This is proof. It's illegally obtained evidence, I said slowly, my nurse's knowledge of medical law kicking in. A lawyer might not be able to use it, but the press could, Casey said quietly, and once the story's out there, the authorities would have to investigate. They couldn't ignore it. I thought about Dr. Winter's threats, about James's betrayal, about the kidney-shaped hole in my body where trust used to live. No, I said slowly, we don't let them win. We just have to be smarter than they are. Then I thought about the scar on my side, about waking up violated, about every other woman who might be vulnerable to men like James and his father. Okay, I said, let's burn them down. Oh my God, Casey just handed Maya the smoking gun, proof that this was all planned. The emails, the financial documents, everything. But here's the problem. The evidence was obtained illegally, and Dr. Winters is threatening Maya's mother with deportation. How can she fight back when they hold all the power? Chapter 3 is where Maya starts assembling her army, and you won't believe who shows up to help her. If this story has you hooked, please like this video, share it with everyone who needs to hear Maya's story, and subscribe, because Chapter 3 is where we meet the one person whose guilt might just save Maya's case. Don't miss it. The first attorney I contacted hung up after hearing the name Winters. The second said it was too complicated, too risky, and wished me luck. The third listened to everything, reviewed Casey's files, and then quoted me a retainer fee of $50,000. I had $3,000 in my personal account. Everything else was joint with James. I was sitting at my mother's kitchen table, head in hands, when someone knocked again. This time, it was Rick. James's brother stood in the doorway looking like death. He'd lost weight, his skin had better color than before, but his eyes were hollow with guilt. "Maya," he said hoarsely, "can I talk to you, please?" Every instinct screamed to slam the door, but something in his expression stopped me. I let him in. Rick sat across from me, unable to meet my eyes. "I didn't know," he said immediately. "I swear to God, I didn't know they didn't ask you. James told me you'd agreed, that you wanted to help. I thought," his voice broke, "I thought you were a hero. But you know now." I overheard them, James and my father, arguing about whether you'd go to the police, about how to keep you quiet. Finally, Rick looked up, and there were tears on his face. "They took your kidney without permission. They violated you, and they did it to save me." "It's not your fault," I said automatically, then stopped, because it wasn't his fault, but he was complicit in benefiting from a crime. "What do you want from me?" "To help, however I can. I'll testify. I'll make a statement. He pulled out a check, hands shaking. "It's not enough. Nothing could be enough, but it's everything I have in my personal account. $50,000 for legal fees, medical bills, whatever you need." I stared at the check, then at him. "Why?" "Because I'm living with your kidney. Every day, every breath, I'm alive because they butchered you." Rick's voice was raw. "I have 2 kids, Maya, a daughter who's 7 and a son who's 5, and I need to be able to look them in the eye and tell them their father is a good man. I can't do that if I let this stand." My mother was watching him with her penetrating stare, the one that had called out my lies throughout childhood. "You have been drinking," she observed. "You are sick man. Why you not on donor list?" Rick flinched. "I was an alcoholic, 10 years. The donor board said I needed 2 years of sobriety before they'd consider listing me. I'd only been sober for 8 months when my kidneys failed." "So you die or someone else's daughter loses her kidney." "I would have chosen to die," Rick said quietly, "if they'd told me the truth. If I'd known you didn't consent, I would have refused the transplant." "Then refuse it now," I said. "If you mean it, reject the kidney. Give it back." The words were cruel, and I meant them to be. Rick went white. I can't. The anti-rejection drugs. If I stop taking them, the kidney fails. You'd suffered for nothing. I'm already suffering for nothing. We stared at each other. Finally, Rick said, "Then let me make it mean something. Let me help you destroy them. My brother, my father, they need to pay for this. Let me help you make sure they do." I took the check, not because I forgave him, but because I needed a weapon, and he was offering one. "There's an attorney," I said. "Name's Patricia Gomez. She wants $50,000 up front, but she thinks she can win." Rick nodded. "Then let's go to war." Patricia Gomez was a pit bull in a pantsuit. She listened to everything, my story, Casey's evidence, Rick's testimony with laser focus. Then she leaned back and smiled like a shark scenting blood. "They're fucked," she said cheerfully. "Pardon my language, but yes, they are comprehensively fucked." "The evidence is illegally obtained," I reminded her. "For a criminal case, yes, we couldn't use it to prosecute, but this isn't a criminal case yet. This is civil, and in civil court, the rules are different." Patricia pulled up documents on her laptop. "We're going to file suit for assault, battery, medical malpractice, fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We're going to sue James, Dr. Winters, the hospital, and every doctor who was in that OR. Can we win?" "Win, honey. We're going to eviscerate them." Patricia's eyes gleamed. "Because here's what they didn't count on. You're a nurse. You know medical procedure. You know what should have happened and what actually happened, and you have an administrator willing to testify that evidence was systematically hidden." Casey shifted nervously. "I could lose my job." "You'll lose your job the moment we file," Patricia agreed. "But with what I'm going to help you document, you'll have the wrongful termination suit of the century. They'll pay you to go away quietly." "I don't want to go away quietly," Casey said firmly. "I want to watch them burn." Patricia's grin widened. "I like you. Okay, here's the timeline. We file next week. The moment we file, the press gets wind of it, unavoidably. Chief of Surgery's son forges wife's consent for organ theft? That's going to be everywhere. The hospital will try to settle immediately to avoid publicity." "We don't settle," I said. Music to my ears. No settlement means discovery, which means we get to subpoena every email, every document, every conversation. We get to depose Dr. Winters under oath, James under oath, every nurse and doctor who was involved. My mother leaned forward. "And the police?" "Once we file, we also file a criminal complaint, assault with intent to maim, fraud, forgery. The DA will have to investigate. They won't be able to ignore it, not with a civil suit in progress and media coverage." It was happening, actually happening. After weeks of feeling powerless, I finally had a path forward. "There's one more thing," Patricia said, expression sobering. "They're going to come after you, hard. They'll leak medical records, they'll claim you're mentally unstable, they'll try to destroy your credibility before we ever get to court. You need to be prepared for your life to become a nightmare." I thought about the scar on my side, about waking up violated, about Dr. Winters' cold smile as he threatened my mother. "Let them come," I said. "I've got nothing left to lose." I was wrong about that. I had so much more to lose. Yes, Maya finally has a lawyer, money, and Rick is willing to testify against his own family. Patricia Gomez is ready to destroy the Winters family in court. But did you catch what Patricia said at the end? They're going to come after you hard. Maya thinks she's ready for war, but she has no idea what the Winters family is about to unleash on her. Trust me, Chapter 4 is where everything gets dark. The media, the death threats, the character assassination. If you're rooting for Maya, please like this video, share her story so more people know what she's fighting, and subscribe because Chapter 4 is where we meet the one person whose guilt might just save Maya's case. Don't miss it. The headlines were everywhere. Local news, national news, medical journals, social media, my name, my face, my violation. all of it public. The response was immediate and vicious. Half the internet called James and Dr. Winters monsters. The other half called me a liar, an opportunist, a woman trying to destroy a good man's life. She signed the consent form. She's just having regrets now that the marriage failed. Typical gold digger. Marries a doctor, then tries to destroy him when she doesn't get enough attention. How convenient that she doesn't remember signing. Sounds like buyer's remorse to me. The racism came next. Latina nurse traps rich white doctor, then cries victim when he tries to help his family. She's probably illegal. Anchor baby trying to take down a real American family. These people come here and then weaponize our legal system, deport her. My mother stopped reading the comments after the third death threat. I couldn't stop. Then the hospital filed their response. According to their legal team, I had signed consent. I'd been a willing, knowing participant in a directed donation. The amnesia I claimed was suspicious at best, fabricated at worst. They released my medical records, illegally, Patricia assured me, but the damage was done. Accuser has history of anxiety, depression. Hospital sources, she was always emotionally unstable. Medication records suggest mental health crisis. I watched my life get dissected by strangers. Every therapy session I'd had after my father died became evidence of instability. The antidepressants I'd taken for 3 months in nursing school became proof I was prone to delusions. James gave an interview, tears in his eyes, explaining how devastated he was, how he'd only wanted to save his brother, how he thought his wife agreed, how her post-surgical confusion had turned into this nightmare. He looked believable, sympathetic, broken. I looked like a harpy trying to destroy a grieving man. My phone number leaked. The calls started. Threats, slurs, people calling me every vile name they could imagine. I changed my number. They found the new one. Someone posted my mother's address online. We came home to find our door spray painted with slurs. "We should stop," my mother whispered one night after the third threatening phone call. "Mija, this is too much. They will kill us." "I already killed me," I said hollowly. "The woman I was died on that operating table. I'm just haunting the corpse now." But I was scared, truly, deeply terrified. Patricia called an emergency meeting 3 days after the lawsuit went public. "We have a problem," she said without preamble. "The media narrative is getting away from us. We need to control it." "How?" I asked. "They're painting me as crazy and vindictive. How do we fight that?" "We go on the offensive. I've arranged an interview with Maria Santos from Channel 7 News. She's sympathetic, smart, and she wants to hear your side." My stomach dropped. "I can't go on camera. I can't." "Maya," Patricia's voice was firm, "right now, you're a headline, a faceless accusation. We need to make you human, real, someone viewers can relate to and believe. What if I mess up? What if I say the wrong thing? Then we deal with it. But right now, silence is killing us. James is on every channel playing the devoted husband whose confused wife is destroying him. We need your voice." I looked at my mother, who nodded encouragingly. "Okay," I whispered. "I'll do it." The interview was scheduled for the following week. Maria Santos came to my mother's apartment. Patricia thought it would be better to film somewhere intimate, personal, rather than a sterile studio. Maria was in her 40s, professional but warm. She spent an hour before filming just talking to me, building trust. "I want you to tell your story, in your own words. Don't worry about sounding perfect, just be honest." When the camera started rolling, I was terrified. But Maria's questions were gentle, guiding me through the narrative. "Take me back to the day you woke up. What did you feel?" I told her about the wrong pain, about James's lies, about discovering the scar and realizing what had been taken from me. And you had never agreed to donate? Never. I would have remembered. This wasn't some medication-induced amnesia. I never knew Rick needed a kidney. I never was asked. They forged my signature and carved me open while I was unconscious. That must have felt like an incredible violation. The word triggered something in me. Tears started falling, and I couldn't stop them. It was rape, I said, the word finally crystallizing what I'd been feeling. It was rape, not sexual, but bodily. They violated my autonomy, my body, my trust. They used me like I was just spare parts. Maria leaned forward. What do you want people to understand? That consent matters, even in marriage, even in medicine, even when someone you love is dying. My voice strengthened. Rick's life is valuable. His children deserve their father, but my body is not community property. James had no right to make that decision for me. No one did. The interview aired 2 days later. The response was different. Suddenly, people were talking about medical consent, about bodily autonomy, about the violation of trust in medical settings. #BelieveMaya started trending. Women shared their own stories of medical procedures done without full consent, of doctors dismissing their concerns, of husbands making decisions about their bodies. But the backlash intensified too. The death threats multiplied. Someone found where I was staying and showed up at 2 a.m., pounding on the door and screaming slurs until police came. We had to move. Patricia arranged a safe house, a small apartment in Tacoma under a fake name. My mother and I lived like fugitives. Then, Casey disappeared. They didn't show up to a scheduled deposition, didn't answer calls. Patricia sent someone to their apartment. Empty, cleared out overnight. We found the note 3 days later, slipped under Patricia's office door. I'm sorry. They offered me money, a lot of money, enough to start over somewhere they'll never find me. I know what this means for your case. I know I'm betraying you, but I can't do this anymore. The threats, the fear, I'm not strong enough. I'm part? Dr. Susan Chen just called with information about what Dr. Winters did to her 5 years ago. This changes everything. If you want to know what Dr. Winters has been hiding for years, you need to watch Chapter 5. Please like this video if you're still Team Maya, share this story because more people need to know the truth, and subscribe so you don't miss Chapter 5, where Maya discovers she's not Dr. Winters' first victim. This is about to get explosive. Dr. Susan Chen met me in a coffee shop in Tacoma, far from Seattle, far from anyone who might recognize us. She was in her 40s, poised, with the careful manner of someone who'd learned to guard her words. She ordered green tea, didn't drink it, and finally said, "Dr. Winters destroyed my career 5 years ago." I waited, barely breathing. I was a resident, surgical resident. I witnessed him make a mistake during an operation, gave an order that nearly killed the patient. When I reported it through proper channels, he had me fired, said I was incompetent, that I'd made the mistake, not him, blackballed me from every hospital in Washington. Her hands shook around her cup. I tried to fight it, but he had power, connections, documentation that made me look unstable. My attorney eventually told me to give up. I ended up working in a clinic in Oregon, never finished my residency, never became a surgeon. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked quietly. "Because when I saw your story, I realized he's still doing it, still destroying anyone who challenges him." And I thought, she looked at me directly, maybe if we're together, if there are multiple witnesses to his pattern of behavior, maybe we can finally stop him. My heart was pounding. You're willing to testify? I'm willing to do whatever it takes. He took my career, my dream, my entire future, and I've spent 5 years watching him continue to thrive while I work in a strip mall clinic. Her voice hardened. I want him to pay. I called Patricia immediately. Within a week, Patricia had tracked down 3 more women: Dr. Jennifer Walsh, an anesthesiologist who'd questioned Dr. Winter's billing practices and found herself suddenly accused of drug theft. Her medical license was suspended for 2 years while she fought the charges. By the time she was exonerated, her reputation was destroyed. Nurse practitioner Amanda Liu, who'd reported Dr. Winters for inappropriate behavior with a patient's family member, she was fired for unprofessionalism and couldn't find work in Seattle for 3 years. Physician assistant Marie Dubois, who documented several instances of Dr. Winters performing procedures without proper consent, nothing as dramatic as my case, but concerning nonetheless, she was suddenly laid off during budget cuts, despite having excellent performance reviews. 4 women, 4 careers destroyed, 4 instances of Dr. Winters wielding his power to crush anyone who challenged him. Patricia was gleeful. "Pattern evidence," she breathed. "This is exactly what we need. This shows systematic abuse of power, retaliation against whistleblowers, a history of consent violations. A jury is going to eat this up." The lawsuit expanded from a case about 1 stolen kidney to a case about systematic abuse of power, fraud, and institutional corruption spanning years. The hospital's legal team requested an emergency meeting. We met in a conference room that probably cost more than my mother's annual income. The hospital's legal team sat on one side, 5 attorneys in suits that screamed money. Patricia sat on our side, flanked by me, Rick, Dr. Chen, and the other women who'd agreed to testify. The lead attorney was a woman named Margaret Ashford, silver-haired and sharp-eyed. "Let's not waste time," she began. "You want money, we want the story to go away. Let's find a number that makes everyone happy." "No," I said. Margaret raised an eyebrow. "Miss Martinez, we're prepared to offer substantial compensation." "I don't want your money. I want criminal charges. I want medical licenses revoked. I want James and Dr. Winters to face actual consequences." "That's not how this works." "Then we go to trial." Patricia's smile was sharp. "And we air every piece of dirty laundry this hospital has. Every patient Dr. Winters harmed, every career he destroyed, every time the administration looked the other way because he was profitable." Margaret's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "If you go to trial, you lose your anonymity completely. Every detail of your life becomes public. Your medical history, your mental health, your marriage, all of it." "I'm already living in hell. At least in court, I'll have the satisfaction of dragging them down with me." One of the younger attorneys leaned forward. "Miss Martinez, be reasonable. We're offering 7 figures. You could start over, put this behind you." "I don't want to put it behind me. I want justice." Margaret stood, gathering her papers. "Then you're a fool. You'll spend years in litigation, your life will be destroyed by media scrutiny, and you might still lose. All for what? Principle?" "Yes," I said simply. "All for principle." The meeting ended with no settlement. 2 days later, Rick called me, voice shaking. "They're threatening my kids, not explicitly, but James came by, said it would be tragic if the custody battle got ugly, if Sarah suddenly decided I was an unfit father." Sarah was Rick's ex-wife. They shared custody of their children. "They're using your kids as leverage," I said, feeling sick. "I know, and Maya, I'm so sorry, but I can't risk losing my kids. I can't testify." The words hit like a physical blow. "Rick, without your testimony—" I know what it means, but my daughter, my son, they're 7 and 5. They need their father, and if I testify, James will make sure I never see them again." I wanted to scream at him, to tell him he was a coward, but I thought about those kids, about what they'd already been through with Rick's illness. "I understand," I said quietly. "Protect your children." After hanging up, I sat in silence. An hour later, Patricia arrived, already knowing. "Rick called me. He's out." "We still have the other women," I said, trying to sound confident. "We still have the pattern evidence." "We do, but without Rick's testimony, we can't prove the kidney theft as definitively. It becomes your word against James's. The pattern evidence helps establish Dr. Winters' character, but a jury might still believe James made a mistake rather than committed a crime." Patricia nodded grimly. "It's going to be harder. Not impossible, but harder." The media coverage shifted after we announced the expanded lawsuit. 4 more women accused Dr. Winters of retaliation. Pattern of abuse alleged at Seattle Brace Memorial Hospital. Is this about justice or revenge? The hospital went into damage control mode. They announced an internal investigation into Dr. Winters' conduct. He was placed on administrative leave pending review. It was theater. Everyone knew it was theater, but it meant something. For the first time, they were on the defensive. Then, the hospital made their countermove. They released a statement announcing they discovered irregularities in Casey Chen's employment, allegations of accessing confidential files without authorization, stealing proprietary information, violating patient privacy laws. They were framing Casey as a criminal. They're trying to discredit Casey before Casey can discredit them, Patricia explained. If they can make Casey look like a rogue employee with an axe to grind, it undermines the evidence Casey provided. But Casey isn't here to defend themselves. Exactly, which is why we need to find them. Patricia hired a private investigator. 3 weeks of searching turned up nothing. Casey Chen had vanished completely. New identity, new location, bought and paid for by the Winters family. We were back to just the medical evidence and the testimony of the 4 women. It would have to be enough. The night before the trial was scheduled to begin, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The betrayal, the violation, the fight to be believed, the costs in privacy, safety, peace of mind. My mother found me on the balcony at 3 a.m. "You should sleep, mija. Tomorrow is big day." "I can't, Mom. What if we lose? What if I've put all these women through hell for nothing?" "Then we lose, but we lose fighting, not silent." She took my hand. "When I crossed the desert to come here, I thought I would die. Many times I thought, this is it, this is where I die. But I kept walking, because staying meant death for sure. Walking meant maybe death, but maybe life." "This is different." "No, this is the same. Staying silent means they win for sure. Fighting means maybe they win, but maybe you win. And maybe," she squeezed my hand, "maybe some other woman sees you fight and finds courage to fight too. Maybe your kidney saves more than Rick's life. Maybe it saves other women from same thing." I hadn't thought about it that way, that my fight wasn't just about me, but about every woman who came after. What if I'm not strong enough? "Mija, you are Elena Martinez's daughter. You crossed the desert in my belly before you were born. Strength is in your blood. You don't have to be strong enough for forever, just strong enough for tomorrow." I held my mother and cried, for the woman I'd been before the surgery, for the innocence I'd lost, for the trust I could never get back. Then I dried my tears and prepared for war. This is incredible. Maya now has 4 women ready to testify about Dr. Winters' pattern of destroying anyone who challenges him. But the Winters family is fighting back hard. They bought off Casey, threatened Rick's kids, and now they're trying to destroy Casey's credibility even though Casey is gone. The trial starts tomorrow in Chapter 6, and this is where everything comes to a head. Will the jury believe Maya and the other women, or will Dr. Winters' money and power win again? If you're on the edge of your seat like I am, smash that like button, share this story because people need to know what's coming, and subscribe so you don't miss Chapter 6. The trial begins, and you won't believe what happens when Maya and James finally face each other in court. This is the moment we've been waiting for. News vans lined the street. Reporters shouted questions. Protesters held signs, some supporting me, others supporting the Winters family. It was chaos. Patricia had prepared me for this, but nothing could truly prepare you for walking through a gauntlet of strangers who decided they knew the truth about your life. The signs blurred together as I made my way to the entrance, flanked by Patricia and my mother. Inside, the courtroom was packed, every seat filled. James sat at the defense table with his team of high-priced attorneys. He looked smaller somehow, not the confident surgeon I'd married, but a man wearing the mask of one. Our eyes met for a brief second. I saw regret there, maybe, or maybe I just wanted to see it. Dr. Winters sat behind James, rod rom straight, face impassive. He looked at me like I was a particularly persistent bacteria he couldn't quite eliminate. The bailiff called court to order. Judge Morrison entered, a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and a reputation for no-nonsense jurisprudence. This is a civil case, Martinez versus Winters et al. We're here to determine whether the defendants committed battery, fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress against the plaintiff. Let's proceed with opening statements. Patricia stood, walking to the center of the courtroom. She didn't use notes. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about the most fundamental right any human being possesses, the right to control what happens to your own body. Maya Martinez went to sleep trusting the man she'd married to care for her during a routine surgery. She woke up missing a kidney she never agreed to donate. That's not medical complication. That's not a misunderstanding. That's theft. That's assault. That's a violation so profound that the law recognizes it as battery, the intentional, unauthorized touching of another person's body. She gestured to the defense table. The defendants will tell you this was a life-saving emergency. They'll show you consent forms with Maya's signature. They'll paint a picture of a devoted husband making an impossible choice. But here's what they can't explain: why the consent form was signed 3 weeks before the surgery on a date when Maya was provably elsewhere. Why emails between James and Dr. Winters discuss forging consent rather than asking for it. Why 4 other medical professionals will testify about Dr. Winters' pattern of destroying anyone who challenges him. Patricia's voice strengthened. This isn't a tragic misunderstanding, it's a calculated crime, and we're going to prove it. She sat down. The defense attorney, a man named Harold Chen, no relation to Dr. Susan Chen, stood up. Ms. Gomez paints a dramatic picture, but the reality is far more mundane. Maya Martinez signed a consent form authorizing the kidney donation. She did so knowingly and voluntarily. The medication she was taking at the time has well-documented effects on memory formation. Her claim that she doesn't remember is frankly not surprising. He walked toward the jury box. What is surprising is her willingness to destroy her husband's career, her father-in-law's reputation, and a renowned hospital's credibility over what is, at worst, a paperwork error. The transplant saved Rick Winters' life. Maya suffered no permanent harm. People live full, healthy lives with one kidney. This lawsuit is not about justice. It's about a marriage that failed and a woman seeking revenge. He sat down, confident. The trial had begun. The prosecution's case built slowly, methodically. First came the medical experts. Dr. Ramirez, a transplant surgeon from California with no connection to either party, walked the jury through proper kidney donation protocols. The donor must be fully informed, must understand the risks, the recovery time, the potential complications. There are psychological evaluations, social work consultations, multiple opportunities to withdraw. The process typically takes months. And in Maya Martinez's case, there was no process. She went in for gallbladder surgery and woke up missing a kidney she never agreed to donate. That's not protocol. That's criminal. The defense cross-examined, trying to poke holes. Isn't it possible Ms. Martinez went through this process and simply doesn't remember due to medication effects? Not without documentation. There would be records of every consultation, every evaluation. None of that exists. But the consent form exists. A single consent form with a suspicious signature date is not adequate documentation for a major organ donation. Next came the document analysis expert, a handwriting specialist who'd examined the consent form. The signature is Maya Martinez's, but it wasn't written on the date indicated. How can you tell? The ink composition. Through spectroscopic analysis, we can determine when ink was applied to paper. This signature was made approximately 4 days before the surgery, not 3 weeks. The defense objected, arguing the science was unreliable. Judge Morrison allowed the testimony but cautioned the jury to weigh it carefully. Then came Stephanie, the nurse who'd first told me the truth. She looked terrified on the stand, hands shaking as she was sworn in. "Tell us what you observed," Patricia prompted gently. I was working the post-op floor when Maya was brought up from recovery. Her chart said kidney donation, but when I checked on her, she seemed confused. She didn't know what surgery she had. That's not normal. Donors are counseled extensively. They know exactly what to expect. Did you find that concerning? Very. I mentioned it to Dr. Winters. He told me Maya was experiencing post-surgical confusion and not to worry, but I kept thinking about it, and then I heard her asking what surgery she had, and I couldn't lie to her. I told her the truth. How did Dr. Winters react when he found out? He had me written up for violating patient privacy. I was nearly fired. The defense cross-examined aggressively. Isn't it true you've had multiple disciplinary issues at Seattle Grace Memorial Hospital? I've never been disciplined except for that one incident. But you were on a performance improvement plan earlier this year, correct? Stephanie hesitated. There were scheduling conflicts. It had nothing to do with my nursing abilities. So you do have a history of conflicts with hospital administration. Patricia paused, letting that sink in. Why are you testifying now? Because when I saw Maya's story, I realized he's still doing it, still destroying anyone who challenges him. And I thought, maybe if we all speak up together, maybe someone will finally stop him. The cross-examination was brutal. Harold Chen attacked every detail, her memory of events from 5 years ago, her bitterness over her failed career, the lack of documentation supporting her claims. Isn't it true you were struggling academically before this alleged incident? No. But your test scores had declined in the months before your termination. I was working 100-hour weeks. Everyone's scores decline under that stress. Or perhaps you were simply not cut out to be a surgeon, and you're blaming Dr. Winters for your own failures. Susan's voice was steel. I was top of my medical school class. I was consistently rated excellence by every attending physician except Dr. Winters. I didn't fail. He destroyed me because I challenged him. But Harold Chen had planted the seed of doubt. Nurse practitioner Amanda Liu testified next, then physician assistant Marie Dubois, then Dr. Jennifer Walsh. Each woman told a similar story. They challenged Dr. Winters, questioned his judgment or ethics, and paid the price. Terminations, suspensions, destroyed reputations, blackballing. The defense attacked each one, finding inconsistencies, questioning motives, suggesting these were simply disgruntled employees with axes to grind. By the end of day 5, I could see the jury was conflicted. The pattern was compelling, but the defense had done a good job making each woman seem potentially unreliable. Then, Patricia did something unexpected. Your Honor, the plaintiff calls Dr. Marcus Winters to the stand. The courtroom erupted in whispers. You rarely call the defendant in the civil case. It gave them a platform to defend themselves. But Patricia had a plan. Dr. Winters took the stand, supremely confident. He'd testified in malpractice cases before. He knew how to present himself. Patricia started simply. Dr. Winters, you're aware that 5 women have testified about experiencing retaliation after challenging you. I'm aware they've made allegations, yes. And you maintain those allegations are false. Completely false. I've dedicated my career to teaching and mentoring young medical professionals. Sometimes difficult personnel decisions must be made. That doesn't constitute retaliation. Let's talk about Dr. Chen specifically. You don't dispute that she reported you to the chief medical officer. She filed a complaint, yes. A baseless complaint, but yes. And 3 weeks later, she was terminated. For cause. Her performance had been declining for months. Can you provide documentation of that declining performance prior to her filing the complaint? Dr. Winters hesitated just for a fraction of a second. The hospital maintains personnel files. I've reviewed those files, Dr. Winters. There's no documentation of performance problems prior to the complaint. All documentation of her supposed mistakes appears after she reported you. Isn't that convenient? I don't create the documentation personally. But you oversee it. You supervise residents, you evaluate them. Are you telling this jury that suddenly, within days of Dr. Chen filing a complaint, she went from a competent resident to one making multiple dangerous mistakes? People can deteriorate quickly under stress. Or you fabricated those mistakes to justify firing her. Which is more likely? Harold Chen objected. Calls for speculation. Sustained. But Patricia had made her point. She moved through each woman's case, finding the same pattern. No documented problems until they challenged Dr. Winters, then suddenly multiple termination-worthy offenses. Let's talk about Maya, Patricia said, shifting gears. You accessed her medical records multiple times before her surgery. Why? I'm chief of surgery. I review all surgical cases. But you accessed them 6 months before her surgery, before she even had symptoms requiring gallbladder removal. Why? I don't recall the specific circumstances. You don't recall? Dr. Winters, you accessed your daughter-in-law's confidential medical records, including her genetic profile, 6 months before she supposedly consented to donate a kidney, and you don't recall why? Dr. Winters' composure cracked slightly. I may have been reviewing records for another purpose. What purpose? The records show you specifically accessed her genetic markers, her blood type, her compatibility profile. You were checking if she was a match for Rick, weren't you? I wanted to know if donation was even a possibility before approaching her. But you never approached her, did you? You just forged her consent and took the kidney. That's not what happened. Then tell us what happened. Tell us why you accessed her records, why the consent form was signed on a date when Maya was provably elsewhere, why you threatened her mother with immigration problems when Maya tried to report you. Tell us, Dr. Winters. He looked at his attorney, trapped. Harold Chen called a recess. During the break, Patricia was cautiously optimistic. I rattled him. The jury saw it. He's not as untouchable as he thinks. But I was exhausted. The trial had consumed 2 weeks of my life. Every day I sat in that courtroom and relived my violation. Every night I went home to my mother's apartment and tried not to fall apart. The cost of fighting was higher than I had imagined. Don't let emotion override evidence. Don't destroy lives because a tragic situation became a legal battle. Find for the defendants and let this family begin to heal. He sat down. Patricia stood, and I could feel the energy shift in the room. Mr. Chen just asked you to ignore emotion and focus on evidence. So let's do that. Let's look at the evidence. She walked to the evidence table, picking up documents. This is Maya's signature on the consent form. Handwriting analysis confirms it's her signature, but applied 4 days before the surgery, not 3 weeks. That's evidence of forgery. These are emails between James and Dr. Winters discussing how to handle Maya, how to secure consent without complications. That's evidence of conspiracy. These are medical records showing Dr. Winters' access to Maya's genetic profile 6 months before she had any symptoms requiring surgery. That's evidence of premeditation. And these? She held up a stack of folders. Are personnel files for Dr. Chen, Amanda Liu, Marie Dubois, and Jennifer Walsh. 4 women who challenged Dr. Winters and had their careers destroyed. That's evidence of pattern. Patricia turned to the jury. Mr. Chen wants you to believe this was a mistake, but you don't forge signatures by mistake. You don't coordinate with multiple doctors by mistake. You don't access confidential medical records 6 months in advance by mistake. This was a plan, a calculated, deliberate violation of Maya Martinez's fundamental rights. And when she tried to speak up, they tried to destroy her just like they destroyed those other women. She walked back to the jury box. Mr. Chen said Maya hasn't suffered permanent damage. Let me tell you what permanent means. Maya will never trust a doctor again without fear. She'll never lie on an operating table without remembering the violation. She'll never look at the scar on her side without reliving the moment she discovered what had been stolen from her. That's permanent. That's damages. That's trauma that will follow her for the rest of her life. Patricia's voice softened. James says he loves Maya, but love doesn't violate. Love doesn't betray. Love doesn't carve open your partner's body without permission and then act like the victim when they're angry. You want to know what love looks like? It looks like asking. It looks like respecting the answer, even if the answer is no. It looks like understanding that some choices, even impossible ones, belong to the person whose body is at stake. James didn't love Maya enough to give her that choice. Dr. Winters didn't respect Maya enough to ask. And now they're asking you to excuse that violation because the outcome was good for Rick. But good outcomes don't justify criminal means. You can't steal because you're giving the money to charity. You can't assault someone because you're saving a life. The ends don't justify the means, especially when the means involve violating someone's body. Patricia returned to our table, then turned back one more time. Maya Martinez deserves justice. She deserves acknowledgement that what happened to her was wrong. She deserves to know that in this country, your body belongs to you, not your husband, not your in-laws, not any surgeon who decides he knows better. Find for the plaintiff. Show Maya and every woman watching this case that consent matters, that autonomy matters, that even when the choice is hard, it's still yours to make. She sat down beside me and squeezed my hand. The jury deliberated for 2 days, 48 hours of agonizing limbo. I stayed at the safe house, unable to eat, barely sleeping. My mother prayed constantly. Patricia fielded calls from reporters, prepared statements for either outcome, and tried to keep me calm. However this goes, she said the night before we expected a verdict, you fought. You spoke up. That matters. What if they don't believe me? I asked. Then we appeal, or we accept the outcome and move forward. But Maya, win or lose, you've already changed things. 5 women testified about Dr. Winters. The hospital is under investigation. The medical board is reviewing his license. Even if the jury finds against you, you've exposed him. I wanted to feel comforted, but all I could think about was facing James and Dr. Winters in that courtroom and hearing a jury say I was wrong, that I was lying, that it was all in my head. The call came at 10 a.m. on Thursday. The jury's reached a verdict, Patricia said. We need to be there in an hour. The drive to the courthouse was surreal. My mother held my hand in the back seat. Patricia drove, focused and silent. When we arrived, the media frenzy had somehow intensified. More cameras, more reporters, more protesters. Everyone wanted to know, would the jury believe the nurse or the doctors? Inside the courtroom, I took my seat between Patricia and my mother. Across the aisle, James sat with his father and their legal team. He looked gray, older than his years. Judge Morrison entered. Has the jury reached a verdict? The 4 women stood. We have, Your Honor. In the case of Martinez versus Winters et al., on the charge of battery, how do you find? We find for the plaintiff. On the charge of fraud, we find for the plaintiff. On the charge of intentional infliction of emotional distress, we find for the plaintiff. Patricia grabbed my hand. My mother started crying. And have you determined damages? Yes, Your Honor. We award the plaintiff $2.3 million in compensatory damages and $5 million in punitive damages. The courtroom exploded. Gasps, shouts, reporters scrambling for their phones. Judge Morrison banged her gavel repeatedly. Order. I'll have order in this courtroom. I couldn't breathe, couldn't process. $7.3 million. They'd believed me. The jury had believed me. James sat frozen at the defense table. Dr. Winters' face was red, hands clenched into fists. The jury has spoken, Judge Morrison said. This court finds the defendants liable for battery, fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Judgment is entered in favor of the plaintiff. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Patricia hugged me. My mother held me. I was crying, but I didn't know if it was joy or relief or just the release of 2 weeks of unbearable tension. We'd won. Outside the courthouse, Patricia gave a statement to the press while my mother and I waited nearby, flanked by security. Today, a jury sent a clear message. Consent matters. Bodily autonomy matters. No matter who you are, no matter how good your intentions, you cannot violate another person's body without permission. Maya Martinez stood up for herself and for every person who's ever been told their body isn't their own. This verdict is justice. Reporters shouted questions. Will you pursue criminal charges? We're providing all evidence to the district attorney. Criminal prosecution is their decision. What about Dr. Winter's medical license? The medical board has an active investigation. We expect action soon. Does Maya have a message for James? Patricia looked back at me. I stepped forward, hand shaking, heart pounding. I hope he learns that love means respecting boundaries, not violating them. And I hope no other woman ever has to go through what I went through. More questions, but Patricia was pulling me away toward the waiting car. We went to a quiet restaurant, just the three of us, Patricia, my mother, and I. We ordered food we barely touched and sat in stunned silence. I can't believe it, I finally said. We actually won. You won, Patricia corrected. You fought, you spoke up, and you didn't give up even when they tried to destroy you. This is your victory. Our victory, I amended. I couldn't have done this without you, without either of you. My mother raised her water glass. To my daughter, the strongest woman I know. We clinked glasses, and for the first time in months, I felt something like peace. The aftermath came in waves. The hospital issued a statement announcing Dr. Winter's immediate resignation. The medical board suspended his license pending further investigation. 3 doctors who'd participated in the surgery had their privileges suspended. James lost his position at Seattle Grace. He moved to California, trying to rebuild his career far from the scandal. Rick sent me a letter. I didn't read it for 2 weeks, but when I finally did, it said simply, "I'm sorry. You deserved better. My children and I will never forget what you sacrificed. I hope someday you can find peace." I didn't respond. Some things didn't need a response. Casey reached out through Patricia, asking if I was willing to talk. I agreed to meet. Casey looked different when I saw them 6 weeks after the trial. Healthier, calmer, but haunted. "I'm sorry," they said immediately. "I took their money and ran. I abandoned you when you needed me." "You were scared," I said. "They threatened you. I understand." "It doesn't make it right. You could have lost because I wasn't there to testify." But I didn't lose. The other evidence was enough. The pattern was enough. Casey nodded, tears in their eyes. "I'm giving the money back. Not to them, to you. It's not enough, but it's something. Keep it," I said. "Use it to start over. Use it to be the person you want to be." We talked for 2 hours, and by the end, something had shifted. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. We'd both survived in different ways, made different choices, lived with different consequences. 6 months after the verdict, I moved to Portland. I could not stay in Seattle. Too many memories, too much pain. Portland felt like a fresh start. I enrolled in law school. Patricia had suggested it months ago, and it finally felt right. I'd spent months being victimized by the legal system and then empowered by it. I wanted to understand it, to wield it, to help other people fight their own battles. My mother moved with me. She found a job at a hospital cafeteria, made friends in the Guatemalan community, started dating a kind widower named Carlos. I went to therapy twice a week. The PTSD was real. Nightmares, panic attacks, trust issues that seeped into every relationship. But slowly, incrementally, I was healing. The scar on my side remained. It always would. Some mornings I traced it and felt only rage. Other mornings I traced it and felt strength. the evidence of what I'd survived. A year after the trial, I gave a talk at a medical ethics conference. The room was packed. Doctors, nurses, ethicists, all there to hear about consent and autonomy. My name is Maya Martinez, and a year ago, my husband stole my kidney while I was unconscious. I told the story, all of it. The violation, the gaslighting, the fight, the verdict. I'm not here for sympathy, I said. I'm here to talk about the fundamental principle that should govern all medical practice: consent. Informed, voluntary, uncoerced consent. Without it, medicine becomes assault. Care becomes violation. The audience was silent, riveted. Some of you might think my case was extreme, that it would never happen in your practice, but I want you to ask yourselves, have you ever pushed a patient toward a decision because you thought you knew better? Have you ever dismissed a patient's concerns because they didn't have medical training? Have you ever prioritized outcomes over autonomy? Because that's how violations begin, not with malice, but with paternalism, with the belief that you know what's best for someone else's body. I paused, letting that sink in. I'm in law school now. I'm going to spend my career fighting for patients' rights, for informed consent, for the principle that your body belongs to you, no matter what. And I hope that every doctor in this room will remember the most important medical intervention you can perform is listening when a patient says no. The applause was thunderous. They won! The jury believed Maya, $7.3 million in damages, and Dr. Winters resigned in disgrace. But wait, this isn't over yet. Chapter 9 is where we see what happens after the victory. Does Maya get her money? Does James face criminal charges? What happens to Rick and his kids? And most importantly, how does Maya actually heal from this trauma? The courtroom victory is just the beginning of the real fight, rebuilding her life. If you're crying happy tears like I am, please like this video, share Maya's victory with everyone, and subscribe because Chapter 9 shows us what justice actually looks like when the cameras are gone and the headlines fade. You need to see how this story really ends. The money came in installments. The Winters family fought the judgment, filed appeals, tried every legal maneuver to reduce or delay payment. But Patricia was relentless, and 18 months after the verdict, the $7.3 million was deposited into an account I'd never imagined having. I stared at the bank statement for a long time, trying to reconcile the number with what it represented. Blood money, pain converted to currency, a kidney priced in millions. "What are you going to do with it?" my mother asked. I had been thinking about that question for months. "I'm going to start a foundation," I said, "for medical consent advocacy, legal aid for people who've experienced medical violations, education programs for healthcare providers." My mother smiled. "Your father would be proud." The Martinez Foundation for Patient Rights launched 6 months later. We hired staff, partnered with law schools and medical schools, created resources for patients and providers. One of our first cases was a woman whose husband had authorized a hysterectomy while she was under anesthesia for a different procedure. Another was a man whose psychiatric medications were changed without his consent or knowledge. A third was a teenager whose parents forced them into conversion therapy. Each case was a knife to the heart, but also proof that my violation hadn't been for nothing, that something good could grow from trauma. The criminal case against James and Dr. Winters moved slowly. The district attorney was cautious, mindful of the complexity. Medical consent cases were notoriously difficult to prosecute. The civil verdict helped, but criminal prosecution required a higher burden of proof. They convened a grand jury. I testified again, reliving everything. So did the other women. So did expert witnesses on medical ethics and consent law. After 2 months of deliberation, the grand jury indicted both James and Dr. Winters on charges of assault, fraud, and conspiracy. The criminal trial was scheduled for the following year. Patricia warned me it would be even harder than the civil case. Criminal trials are different. The standard is beyond a reasonable doubt. They're going to throw everything at your credibility again. Let them, I said. I've survived worse. But when the trial date approached, something unexpected happened. James's attorney reached out through Patricia. James wanted to meet. I agreed to meet in Patricia's office, neutral territory, with Patricia as a witness. James looked terrible, gaunt, shadows under his eyes, the confidence I'd once found attractive completely gone. "Maya," he began, then stopped, seeming to struggle for words. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I wanted to tell you in person. I'm pleading guilty." I blinked, certain I'd misheard. "What?" "To all charges: assault, fraud, conspiracy. I'm pleading guilty and accepting whatever sentence the court determines." "Why?" Patricia asked sharply, suspicious of tricks. "Because Maya was right. About all of it." James looked directly at me for the first time. I told myself I was saving Rick's life, that the ends justified the means, that you'd forgive me eventually. But I was lying to myself. I violated you. I treated your body like property, and I've spent 2 years watching you suffer the consequences while I tried to avoid responsibility. "You're facing prison time," Patricia pointed out. 5 to 10 years minimum with a guilty plea. "I know, and I deserve it." James's hands were shaking. "My father doesn't agree. He wants to fight, to drag this through trial, to destroy Maya's credibility again. But I can't do it. I won't put you through that again." I didn't trust it, couldn't trust it. "What does Dr. Winters think about your guilty plea?" "He's furious. He's disowned me. But Maya," James' voice cracked, "I stole your kidney. I violated you in the most fundamental way. You shouldn't have to prove that to a jury again. You shouldn't have to defend yourself for being angry about being mutilated. You could get out earlier with good behavior," Patricia said. "You understand that." "I understand. And when I get out, I'll have lost my medical license, my career, probably most of my family. But at least I'll have done one thing right. Stopped fighting and accepted responsibility." After James left, Patricia and I sat in silence. "Do you believe him?" she finally asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe. Or maybe his lawyers told him a guilty plea with remorse plays better than losing at trial. Does it matter?" I thought about that. No. Either way, he faces consequences. Either way, I don't have to testify again. That's enough. Dr. Winters did not plead guilty. He fought the charges, hired the best criminal defense team money could buy, and went to trial. I had to testify again. So did the other women. It was exhausting, traumatizing. Another round of having my credibility attacked and my mental health questioned. But something had shifted. James's guilty plea had validated my story. The civil verdict had established facts. The defense couldn't argue I was lying or confused when James had admitted guilt. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The jury deliberated for 4 days. They found Dr. Winters guilty on all charges. The judge sentenced him to 8 years in prison. He was 72 years old. 8 years might be a life sentence. James was sentenced to 6 years. With good behavior, he'd serve 4. Rick's kids wrote me letters. I didn't respond to the first few, but eventually I did. Brief notes acknowledging their existence, wishing them well, making clear I couldn't be part of their lives. Rick himself sent quarterly payments beyond what the court ordered. I donated them all to the foundation. I didn't want his money, but I could use it to help others. 2 years after the verdict, I graduated from law school. My mother sat in the front row, crying proud tears. Patricia was there, along with Dr. Chen, Amanda, Marie, and Jennifer, the women whose testimonies had helped save me. After the ceremony, we all went to dinner. "What's next?" Dr. Chen asked. "You joining Patricia's firm?" "Actually," I said, "I'm starting my own practice, medical malpractice and patients' rights. Patricia's going to consult, but I want to build something specifically focused on consent violations." "You're going to be busy," Amanda observed. "These cases are everywhere." "I know, and that's exactly why we need more lawyers fighting them." 3 years post-verdict, I started dating. His name was Marcus. Different Marcus, not Naomi's ex. He was a therapist, gentle and patient, someone who understood trauma because he worked with it professionally. Our first date, I told him everything. The surgery, the violation, the trial, all of it. "That's horrific," he said simply. "Thank you for trusting me with it." No platitudes about forgiveness, no pressure to move on, just acknowledgement and respect. We took things slowly. Some nights I could not be touched. Some nights panic attacks came out of nowhere. Some nights the scar on my side burned like it was fresh. Marcus never pushed, never demanded more than I could give. "You're one of the strongest people I've ever met," he said once. "I don't feel strong." Strength isn't not being afraid. It's being afraid and doing it anyway. You were terrified and you fought back. You were violated and you demanded justice. That's strength. 4 years after the trial, I got a call from the hospital. Seattle Grace Memorial was creating a new ethics position, Director of Patient Advocacy and Consent Compliance. They wanted someone to overhaul their consent procedures, train staff, and ensure nothing like what happened to me ever happened again. They offered me the job. I laughed. "You want me to work for the hospital that covered up my violation?" "We want to transform the hospital that failed you," the administrator corrected. "There's been complete leadership turnover, new board, new chief of surgery, new ethics protocols. We want to do better, and we think you can help us." I almost said no immediately, but then I thought about all the patients at that hospital, about future violations that could be prevented, about systemic change from within. I need autonomy, complete authority over consent procedures, no interference from administration, and if I find violations, I report them, publicly if necessary. Agreed. And I want Dr. Chen hired as a surgical consultant, and Amanda Liu as a nurse practitioner supervisor, and Marie Dubois in physician assistant training. There was a pause. "You're hiring the women whose careers were destroyed. I'm hiring the women who know exactly what went wrong and how to fix it. Take it or leave it." They took it. 5 years after the verdict, James was released from prison. He didn't contact me directly, but I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd moved to rural Montana, was working as a general practitioner in an underserved community, and had no plans to return to Seattle. Rick's health remained stable. My kidney was still functioning. His kids were 12 and 10, growing up healthy. I'd saved Rick's life despite never intending to. The irony wasn't lost on me. 6 years post-verdict, my mother got sick. Cancer, aggressive and late stage. The doctors gave her 6 months. She lasted 8, fighting until the very end. I held her hand as she died, and she whispered in Spanish, "You are the bravest thing I ever made. I am so proud." Those were her last words. Her funeral was large. She'd built a community in Portland. Carlos sobbed through the eulogy. My foundation colleagues attended. Patricia flew in from Seattle, and Casey came, tentative and uncertain. "I'm sorry about your mother. She was incredible." She was. We stood together in uncomfortable silence. Then Casey said, "I'm working at a trans health clinic now, doing advocacy work because of you, because you showed me what it looks like to fight even when you're terrified." I was terrified the whole time. That's what made it brave. 7 years after the trial, I won my first major case as lead attorney. A woman whose doctor had performed an episiotomy without consent during childbirth, the hospital claimed it was standard protocol. We proved it was standard procedure done for the doctor's convenience, not medical necessity. The jury awarded $1.2 million. Afterward, my client hugged me, crying, "Thank you for believing me, for fighting for me." Someone fought for me once. I'm just paying it forward. 8 years post-verdict, I stood in my bathroom looking at my scar. It was still there, would always be there. But I'd stopped seeing it as just a wound. It was evidence, proof of violation, yes, but also proof of survival, proof that I'd faced the worst thing I could imagine and kept going. I'd lost a kidney, but I'd gained purpose. I'd lost my marriage, my trust, my sense of safety, but I'd gained strength, resilience, and a calling. The trade wasn't fair. It would never be fair. But I was still here, still fighting, still making sure that what happened to me happened to fewer and fewer people every year. Some days, that felt like enough. Emma Winters finished her surgical residency at Johns Hopkins and published a groundbreaking paper on consent procedures in organ transplantation. Casey's Trans Health Clinic expanded to 12 locations across the country. Dr. Chen became chief of surgery at Seattle Grace Memorial, the first woman to hold the position, and implemented the most stringent consent protocols in the nation. The Martinez Foundation helped over 10,000 people secure justice for medical violations. James continued working in Montana, training doctors in underserved communities, living quietly with the weight of what he'd done. Rick's health eventually failed, not the transplanted kidney, but his liver, damaged by years of alcoholism before he'd gotten sober. He died at 62, surrounded by his children and grandchildren. In his will, he left everything to the Martinez Foundation. And me? I argued cases before the Supreme Court. I testified before Congress 4 more times. I trained a generation of lawyers to fight for patients' rights. I lived, not the life I'd planned, not the life I'd wanted before a surgeon's knife had carved away my innocence along with my kidney, but a life that mattered, a life that changed things, a life that said to every woman who came after me, your body is yours, your consent matters, and when someone violates you, you can fight back. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you always, always fight. Wow, what a journey. From waking up violated and alone to standing in the Oval Office watching the president sign a law that protects millions. Maya didn't just get justice, she created justice for everyone who came after her. Her kidney was stolen, but she built an empire from that theft. She transformed violation into victory, trauma into purpose, and pain into power. If Maya's story moved you, if it inspired you, if it made you believe that even the worst violations can't destroy you, please like this video and let me know in the comments. Share this story with anyone who needs to hear it. And subscribe because stories like this matter. They show us that survivors aren't just victims, they're warriors, they're builders, they're the people who change the world. Thank you for being part of Maya's journey. Her fight continues in every case the foundation takes on. Justice isn't just a verdict, it's a legacy. And Maya's legacy will protect people for generations to come.